Okay, good morning. This is actually a tricky thing to make. It's like pizza dough where easy to understand but hard to master. Udon is a very popular Japanese thick wheat noodle, but you can get variations of it where it's thinner. I did people a little bit dirty with one of the first videos I've ever made. It's got the most views as of now, is the udon video. And basically all I did was defrost frozen udon and using, soup concentrate, make a soup out of it and put some spring onions on it. So this time I'm gonna go the extra mile. I'm gonna make udon from scratch. Wanna achieve as close I can to the frozen udon you get at supermarket. Thick, chewy, long, white, kind of slippery noodle that's quite fun to eat. I expect to face some difficulties. I don't have the right tools, but you're gonna watch me use stuff that you probably would have as well. Initially, you're gonna make some dough. Apparently, you need a high protein wheat flour, but you basically need it so that you can develop the gluten really well. All I had at the moment, I had bread flour, which was actually, I think, slightly higher than you needed. You need about a teaspoon of salt for about a cup of water, cup and a half. Dissolve that first, in warm that is. For every cup of water, you probably need about, I believe it was 2 to 3 cups of flour. For every cup of flour, makes about two people's worth. It's supposed to be a very dense dough. It's quite hard to maneuver. So yeah, as you knead it slowly, bit by bit, it'll come together. It'll be sort of like Play-Doh, and it'll look kind of nice before you destroy the Play-Doh. If you knead it a lot, it's very hard to over knead. What I did to knead the dough, mushed it into itself with the heel of my hand and just rotated it 90 degrees or so and just folded it on itself and pushed that fold into itself and just repeated that for 10 to 15 minutes quite vigorously as well. It's a very low hydration dough, so it's quite firm as well, so you gotta put some oomph into it. The gluten's kind of formed when you press it and it kind of bounces back. I'm not too sure how long you're supposed to go, but you're supposed to go for a fairly vigorous 15 minutes. I think you should rest the dough for at least an hour or so or two in the fridge, and if not overnight, I think overnight might be alright. This is tsuyu, udon soup, that you can also use for soba. I'm showcasing how to make tsuyu. You can get pre-made stuff. It's basically a concentrate. Now, I learnt a recipe that I believe to be really good from my experience at a Japanese restaurant when I was working there. The ratio was 5 parts dashi, 1 part mirin, and 1 part soy sauce. I like for you to check out the dashi video because it gives full explanation. The link will be in the description if you haven't seen it yet. There's a few ways of doing it. There's the proper way, which is draw out the flavor using the dried ingredients, so the bonito, shiitake mushroom, and kombu, the kelp. Easier variations to this one, you could just buy the stock powder, the dashi powder, and you can get pretty much like a tea bag equivalent, which is slightly nicer. So to make the tsuyu, or the soup base for the udon, to surmise, you just want to heat all 3 ingredients into a pot. So heat up the dashi and 5 parts of it and 1 part mirin. However, I did a up. I forgot that soy sauce existed in different forms. Not all soy sauces are the same. Here's what I suggest. Instead of doing the 5-1-1, I suggest you doing 5-1 and pour the soy sauce in a little bit at a time until you get to a desired saltiness. And the saltiness should be that you should be able to drink it and not have to be that concerned that you'll have to chug a bunch of water afterwards. But only just.
Alright, that's a bit salty.
Try and fix the taste. It's not that hard, you just gotta add more water, and if you have dashi powder, that's good, but not necessary. Some toppings, the classic spring onion. Another classic topping is fish cake, and normally it's like a D-shaped, capital D-shaped piece of fish cake for udon. However, all I had was Naruto fish cake on me, the one with like a little pink swirl in the middle. Truth be told, the reason this video came out late is because, well, I did a big up with the first batch. What happened was the noodles came all up and they were misshapen, and in the end, when I boiled them, it was too ugly to show, which I'm going to show you a little bit here. And it became all pebbly bits and pieces. It looked like one of those pastas that you mushed by hand. But the good batch, I'm going to explain. So I rolled it out. You want to roll it out thinner than the end result because it's going to expand a little by about maybe like 20 to 30%. Now, if you have a rolling pin, just do your best. The dough, because you rested it I left it overnight, but for 2 nights. So because of that, the dough was, a little bit more springy. That's if you leave it cold and just roll it right away. If you let it rest in room temperature before you use it, it should soften a little. This is how you make stuff in a normal household. You're going to fold it over so that you can cut it as easy as you can in an even way And yeah, just cut it, if you can, the same width as you rolled it, so it becomes like a square cross section. So yeah, make sure you put a shitload of flour in between each so they don't stick as you cut it. Now, the reason why I screwed up was because I kind of like tossed it around and like made it all like into a bunch of hairs instead of collecting it like strands like you see here. Even then, because I'm using a knife, you can see little like pinch marks where I folded it. Now once you cut it, douse it in flour, put it in boiling water, and make sure your pot is huge, about 2-3 times what you see here. What I did was enough for about 2 people. So for every cup, you might get around 2 portions, to be honest. When you're boiling it, 8 minutes or so would be just right, because it's kind of still raw. The stuff that you buy from the shop is, again, pre-cooked and frozen. I think it's best practice to, no matter whether you're having it hot or cold or in between, is to wash it, rinse it under cold water, making it cold. And when you do it like that, it sort of brings firmness and sort of locks in that texture of the udon. If it's sitting there warm, it might like continue to cook, you could say. If you're gonna have it hot, after you do that, just put it under hot water for 30 seconds to a minute. There you go. Look, it actually looks alright. Like, not gonna lie, like, it looks pretty good. Let's just pretend it's my first time, so it sounds good. As you can tell, I didn't cut it as thin as it was thick. Now, this is cold suyu that I made from the up batch. I had plenty left. So amongst toppings, you have your classic spring onion. Basically, you put it on every time. And you have the naruto I spoke about earlier. Now, this is tororo kombu, which is basically like slimy seaweed for the most part. It's quite a little bit salty. Don't be averse to trying new things, please. It's good. Another topping is tenkatsu, which is tempura scraps. Alright, this is a distinction between udon and soba when it comes to like making it spicy. Soba, you have wasabi when it's cold, and you have shichimi when it's hot. With udon, it's shichimi when it's hot or cold. Definitely is like something you'd buy at a restaurant. Texture-wise, it's nice and chewy. Maybe too chewy, depending on your preferences. It's actually a very strong tasting noodle. Like, you're gonna have to put some really strong dipping sauce with it. I'm getting the chill in my throat, please help. And it's very heavy. You won't need much. It's good. To summarize my experience, the noodles came a little bit more yellow. It does have a very strong taste as well, which is good. I quite like that. But yeah, thanks. Please subscribe. This was a big pain in the ass.